Well, welcome back. I don't know if you saw either one of the national conventions. Interesting comparisons between the two. I think the consensus is that in terms of emotion and excitement, that the Democrats came out a little better in their Charlotte convention than did the Republicans. I don't know why that's the case. Maybe it was because there was a warm-up period for Romney that still hasn't fully taken effect. You know, Romney was not really the old guard. He was not the more conservative base of the Republican Party, and he's been fighting for months and months through this whole campaign to be the accepted candidate. He's been running for 7 or 8 years now, but he still doesn't get full respect in the campaign from certain elements within the party. So maybe that's why the enthusiasm level wasn't quite as much as you saw from the Democrats. Bill Clinton, who certainly is the best orator in politics today, living today, stunned his crowd with excitement. The guy's a master at very succinctly explaining, and he did a good job. He said, look, let me tell you, and pay attention to me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whether you like Bill Clinton or not, he's a master at laying out his case, did a first-rate job. He's in the major leagues, and both Romney and Obama are a step or two below him. Tampa was kind of like the Republican convention itself. You know, Tampa is an older city, more experienced, less excitable. They've hosted the Super Bowl. They know how to put things on. Things went pretty much according to plan. Charlotte's a younger, more eager town, kind of reflecting the younger blood in the Democratic Party. Nobody to get a good hotel room, lots of complaining. No complaints in Tampa along that young way. But the towns kind of compared to the candidates themselves. And I thought that by and large, both parties did a good job of pushing forth to encourage their base. I was surprised by one thing in this whole change of party structure and going ahead and putting the fine-tuning on the message each party is giving out. Traditionally, as far back as I can remember, the Republicans have been the party of foreign policy, of national defense. They have been the quintessential voice for what happens outside the United States. The Republicans, rather the Democrats, took on the social issues, were more domestically inclined. Republicans, outwardly inclined. Boy, that sure has changed around. At the Democratic convention, it was all about how Obama had killed Osama bin Laden and how we're getting out of Afghanistan and how we're building respect in the world. The words Afghanistan and Iraq, Osama bin Laden, nothing about foreign policy was even mentioned at the Republican convention. That's puzzling. That's puzzling that at least there was not some message sent out by Romney to the troops. 100,000 troops still in Afghanistan. I don't blame that so much on Romney as his handlers, the guys that wrote the speeches. They made a faux pas, in my opinion, about not talking about foreign policy and sending some message to our troops out there. Didn't do it. And particularly during this time, you know, we're in Afghanistan, and I think that Obama is open to criticism. He says, well, we're going to get out in 2014. Well, you know the danger now? The deadliest month in Afghanistan in the last several years was last month, August. And the reason it was so deadly was not that the Taliban or the enemy was coming after us. It was the own security forces we worked side by side with within the Afghanistan government. The Afghan security forces were turning their guns on Americans and killing Americans. They don't want us there. And there's no threat to America there. And if I were Romney, I'd say, look, if you're going to get out in 2014, for gosh sakes, get out now. Get out now. Quit carrying this thing along. But he continues to do so, and I think, or continue not to make that case. And I think it's a problem. Now, did it really make any difference in either convention? I don't think so. These debates are going to be critical. 3 debates. Last one, I think, October the 22nd, which will be foreign policy. Those debates are going to be critical. We're down to 5 or 6% of the voters who are undecided. Those voters are going to be swayed, I think, by the debates and finally making up their mind. And that's going to have a huge bearing on whether or not Romney can overcome what I think most people now say is the fact that he's a little behind. Can he overcome it? Sure, he can overcome it. But he's going to have to really handle those debates better, particularly on foreign policy, than he did at the convention. Here's a bigger issue, by the way, too. I wonder, can the president can any president really create jobs? They're all saying it's all about the economy and job creation. States try to create jobs by pouring billions of their money into garnering new industry, bringing it into their state. But that's not job creation. It's a shifting going on. My home state of Louisiana has put billions into companies to come into the state. Well, if they're coming into our state, they're leaving some other state. There's no new job creation. And so the states, I think, have performed a disservice to the country and to their individual states by all this cost shifting going on, spending billions of dollars to grab a company from this state moving into their home state. Then on the federal level, this GM bailout has been touted by the Obama team as a roaring success, but was it really? There's still a huge debt owed by General Motors, and it's not really a loan. The U.S. government has taken a position. They own the stock. They own about 60% of the stock, and you really can't sell it. It's not really going up very highly. So we're stuck with a good bit of the debt of General Motors, the taxpayers, whether we like it or not. Then the GM bondholders, they were wiped out. If they had bonds in GM, once this change took effect, they were wiped out, so we didn't serve them well. If that's going to happen, you kind of wonder what would have happened if GM would have disappeared. Oh, my gosh, according to those in favor of the bailout. And by the way, Paul Ryan, the vice presidential candidate for the Republicans, was for the bailout. For TARP, for the bailout, for all this stuff. So when these Republicans holler, oh my gosh, this is terrible, both sides are at fault in this. What would have happened if GM had not been bailed out? They'd have gone under. A lot of people lost their jobs. There's a void to fill. There is the necessity for millions of cars in this country, thousands new off the assembly line. The slack would have been picked up in Michigan and other states by Ford, by Toyota, by Honda. They would have hired these workers, and the car industry would have continued to go on. So I just think that's a false assumption that the GM debacle would not have benefited from it going completely under. Then you talk about this stimulus. Obama talks about what it's going to take within the economy. $400 billion in the stimulus. Most economists say we needed about $2 trillion to make a difference in the stimulus. Well, politically, that's not feasible. Neither party is going to come up with that kind of money. Basically, this thing just may have to play out a little bit. It is finding a way to settle down. Stock market's going up. New homes are starting to be built again. It's going to work itself out. But you can't run for president and say, hey, if you elect me, I will tell you just to wait things out. That's not the message the American voters want to hear, and that's not the message the politicians are going to give you. So big challenges out there. I don't think presidents can create a lot of jobs, quite frankly. They'll keep talking about how they can, and these debates are going to make a huge, huge difference in whether or not Mitt Romney can overcome what I think being behind right now, not by a lot, but by being behind, can he make a difference in making that up and getting elected president of the United States. We'll talk a lot more about this. Be back right after this message.